Have you ever noticed that the most popular dividend ETFs might actually be acting like an anchor on your portfolio if you hold them at the exact wrong stage of your financial life? The financial space is filled with people blindly throwing their money into SCHD for the yield, or DGRO for the growth, treating them like they are essentially the same tool. But here in 2026, the gap between high current yield and long-term dividend growth has completely fractured. The market dynamics have shifted, and choosing the wrong side of this equation could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in compounding over the next 2 decades. Today, we are putting SCHD and DGRO head-to-head, unpacking their underlying mechanics and analyzing which one actually aligns with the math of your specific timeline. I'm Tony, and welcome to Grow with Tony, where we cut through the financial noise to build sustainable real-world wealth. Just a quick heads up as we get started. We are exploring educational data and strategy breakdowns today, not individual financial advice, so always weigh these concepts against your own unique situation. Let's start by looking at the heavyweight champion of the dividend community, SCHD. The Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF has built an absolute fortress of a reputation. And looking at the numbers, it is easy to understand why. However, a common misconception, and this is where a lot of the data gets mixed up online, is how this fund actually selects its companies. SCHD tracks the Dow Jones U.S. Dividend 100 Index. The initial bouncer at the door is surprisingly simple. A company must have 10 consecutive years of dividend payments. Notice that the requirement is payment, not necessarily uninterrupted growth at this first stage, along with a minimum market cap of $500 million. But the initial screen is just the beginning. The real magic, and the reason SCHD behaves the way it does, is the ranking system. Once a company passes that 10-year payment test, it is graded on 4 strict fundamental metrics. First, free cash flow to total debt. This ensures the company is actually generating real cash and isn't suffocating under leverage. Second, return on equity, which measures how efficiently management is using shareholder capital to generate profits. Third, the current dividend yield. And finally, the 5-year dividend growth rate. When a fund applies these 4 specific filters, it essentially builds a high-quality value portfolio. It automatically weeds out the dangerous yield traps, those companies offering a massive 8 or 9% yield simply because their stock price has collapsed and the market expects a dividend cut. Because of this rigid methodology, SCHD ends up holding roughly 100 highly profitable, deeply established businesses. The resulting sector breakdown is incredibly telling. The fund is perpetually anchored by financials, healthcare, industrials, and consumer staples. These are the companies that make the things people buy, regardless of what interest rates are doing or what the economy looks like. But this defensive posture comes with a massive structural trade-off. By focusing so heavily on yield and value fundamentals, SCHD practically ignores the growth engines of the modern economy. Technology typically hovers well under 10% of the entire fund. When the broader market experiences a massive bull run driven by tech and AI advancements, SCHD tends to lag significantly. It is a defensive, value-oriented vehicle. During the bear market, when high-flying growth stocks are getting crushed, SCHD acts as a shock absorber, often outperforming the S&P 500 by simply not losing as much. But in a roaring bull market, holding SCHD is like driving a heavily armored truck on a racetrack. It is incredibly safe, but it is not going to win any speed records. Now, let's shift gears and look at the engine powering the alternative. If SCHD is the armored truck, DGRO is built for a completely different kind of terrain. The iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF tracks the Morningstar U.S. Dividend Growth Index, and its fundamental philosophy completely ignores the desire for a high yield today. Instead, it is optimizing entirely for tomorrow. The entry requirements for DGRO are fascinating. A company must have exactly 5 years of uninterrupted dividend growth. Not just payments, but actual, consecutive annual increases. That is a harder hurdle to clear than it sounds, as it requires management to consistently prioritize returning more cash to shareholders year after year. But the brilliance of DGRO lies in its safety checks. The index explicitly excludes any stock whose dividend yield falls in the top 10% of the universe. It intentionally avoids the highest payers. Why? Because exceptionally high yields are historically correlated with distress. A yield that looks too good to be true usually is. Furthermore, DGRO enforces a strict payout ratio limit. A company must pay out less than 75% of its earnings as dividends. This single metric changes the entire DNA of the fund. When a company is paying out 90% of its earnings, it has almost nothing left to reinvest into research, development, or acquisitions. By capping the payout ratio, DGRO guarantees that the companies inside the portfolio are retaining at least a quarter of their earnings to fuel future growth. This methodology drastically expands the scope of the fund. Instead of a concentrated 100 stocks, DGRO typically holds over 400 companies. More importantly, this rule set allows the technology sector to take a dominant role. Because tech giants usually have lower starting yields, but massive cash flows and fast-growing dividends, they easily pass DGRO's screens. Inside this fund, the exposure includes the absolute juggernauts of the modern economy, companies with massive capital appreciation potential that just so happen to be growing their dividends by double digits every year. When we lay these two methodologies side by side, the contrast is stark. We are looking at two highly effective tools designed for two completely different jobs. Understanding which tool to pick requires a deep dive into the math of compounding. Specifically, the concept of yield on cost paired with the reality of tax drag. Imagine buying a stock today for 100 that pays a modest $2 dividend. Your starting yield is 2%. To a yield chaser, that looks completely unappealing. But if that company, driven by a low payout ratio and massive cash flow, increases that dividend by 12% every year, the math gets very interesting a decade down the line. In 10 years, the annual payout might be $6 or $7. Because the original investment was only $100, the effective yield on that original money is now 6 or 7%. Meanwhile, the stock price itself has likely doubled or tripled because the underlying earnings grew. This is the DGRO dynamic. It requires patience. It demands that the investor accepts less cash today in exchange for a snowball effect that accelerates aggressively. In years 10, 15, and 20, for an investor in their 20s, 30s, or even 40s who is actively earning a salary, immediate dividend income is often counterproductive. If investments are held in a taxable brokerage account, high dividend payouts generate a very real tax drag. Every time a dividend hits the account, it triggers a taxable event, forcing the investor to hand over a percentage to the government before reinvesting the rest. When building wealth, the goal is to defer taxes as long as mathematically possible, allowing the gross amount to compound uninterrupted. From this analytical standpoint, a dividend growth strategy naturally favors the accumulation phase of life. The lower starting yield minimizes the annual tax burden, while the heavy tech and growth exposure drives the total return of the portfolio upward. Over a 20-year horizon, the structural advantage of a dividend growth fund often crushes a pure value fund in total return. However, the analysis completely flips when the timeline changes. Consider an investor who is 55 or 60, perhaps staring down retirement in the next 12 months. The luxury of a 20-year compounding runway no longer exists. A 2% starting yield that might grow into a 5% yield a decade from now doesn't pay for groceries, healthcare, or property taxes today. This environment is precisely where the SCHD methodology proves its worth. The higher starting yield, often hovering in the mid-3% range depending on market pricing, provides a much higher baseline of immediate cash flow. But the yield is only half the story. The real value of SCHD in the distribution phase of life is its volatility profile. When living off a portfolio, the greatest mathematical risk is sequence of returns risk, the danger of the market, crashing exactly when withdrawals begin, forcing the sale of shares at rock-bottom prices. Because SCHD is heavily concentrated in defensive sectors like consumer staples and healthcare, its price action is inherently less volatile than the broader market. When macroeconomic fears drive a tech sell-off, fundamentally sound companies that sell everyday necessities tend to hold their ground. SCHD acts as a buffer. It allows an investor to collect a substantial, reliable dividend stream without having to liquidate precious shares during a market panic. The data paints a very clear picture. Yield is a defensive mechanism, while dividend growth is an offensive strategy. One of the most fascinating aspects of comparing these two funds is looking at what they actually hold in common. Given that they are both labeled as dividend ETFs, it is natural to assume they are buying the exact same stocks. But the reality is that their overlap by weight usually hovers remarkably low, often around the 20 to 25% mark. This low correlation presents a very interesting opportunity for portfolio construction, because they screen for completely different fundamental traits. They do not cannibalize each other. Pairing them together creates a highly sophisticated, yet simple, barbell strategy. On one side of the barbell, SCHD anchors the portfolio with high current yield, downside protection, and value-oriented stability. On the other side, DGRO pulls the portfolio forward with tech exposure, rapid dividend growth, and capital appreciation potential. A balanced split between the two creates a blended portfolio that captures the exact middle ground, a respectable starting yield that completely outpaces inflation, alongside broad market exposure that doesn't sacrifice the growth of the modern economy. Ultimately, the friction in the dividend investing community comes from trying to crown a single absolute winner. But the market does not reward absolute loyalty. It rewards strategic alignment. Analyzing past performance charts is a rear-view mirror approach. The numbers only matter in the context of the future they are being applied to. The correct choice between a high-yield quality filter and a pure dividend growth filter comes down entirely to the specific phase of wealth building taking place right now. If the goal is maximizing the total size of the portfolio over the next 2 decades and minimizing taxable drag, the math strongly points toward aggressive dividend growth. If the goal is capital preservation, reducing portfolio volatility, and generating immediate, reliable cash flow to fund a lifestyle today, the mechanics heavily favor the quality yield approach. So, looking at your own financial timeline, which of these strategies actually aligns with the math of your life right now? Drop a comment below and let me know. Are you structuring your portfolio for the long-term compounding engine, or are you utilizing the defensive cash flow fortress? And if you want to keep unpacking the actual mechanics of wealth building without the hype, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We do these deep dives because navigating the market isn't about finding the perfect universal fund. It's about finding the exact right tool for your specific finish line. See you in the next one.